Okay, maybe. Okay, let me see if I can get this right this time. It's Dave Tate with another edition of Table Talk, I think. We'll see. I think. We'll see. I think. We'll see. I think. We'll see. I think. Maybe. I'll take the questions that come through here. If somebody could try to send a question or just a statement, I don't care. It would help just to know if this works. Yes, no, maybe not. I have the backups. There we go. There we go. Okay. This would be my table talk, kinda, quarantine edition, where it really should just be a fat dude in a gym with a pizza is what this should be called. And what I wanted to do was to just take the questions here from YouTube. I've done a couple of these on Instagram with Instagram Live, but I wanted to get over here on YouTube to where the table talks are generally done and go from there. So let's see what we got. First, I did tell you it's gonna be a fat dude in a gym drinking monster drinks, eating pizza, so I warned you. This shit is greasy. Distance for sled dragging. Hold on. I'll amuse myself. Okay. I did a video on here last week, I believe, on sled dragging. It depends what you're using the sled for and what you're doing the sled dragging for. So I'm going to assume that you're doing it more for anaerobic conditioning, because I have known people and I've had people drag sleds for a mile at a time. That wouldn't be anaerobic conditioning or try to increase your squat, bench, or deadlift with that. So generally the way that I like to do it, I don't like to go by distance, because you don't know how many steps each person is going to get per distance because you don't know their stride length. So it becomes a little harder to really get a good handle on the programming with the sled work, when what's more important to me rather than distance is steps, because each step's kind of a repetition. So I like to go by 20 to 30 steps. 20 steps is what I like best. And then that's 20 steps down and then 20 steps back, obviously. To me, that's one trip. It's not two trips. It's not down, one trip, back, one trip. Down, back, one trip. So that way I can program the rest periods to be, say 2 minutes between trips, but only 15 seconds between, down and back. So from that standpoint, I like the 20 steps because you're able to load it heavier, but not so heavy that it becomes, some type of competitive strongman movement, because it's not the purpose of what the sled conditioning is. So I hope that answered that question. If you have anything more specific with the sleds, I can kind of elaborate on that. What's up from Sacramento? Tell Mark Bell I said fuck off. It's jokingly. your take on good mornings. I love good mornings. I think that depending upon how you train, because everything comes down to how you train and how you program. So if you use more of a conjugate type of approach, I like good mornings a lot. So, but I don't like good mornings for max effort as far as heavy singles. I like good mornings for 3 to 5 reps. And it's not really because it's inherently more dangerous to do a heavy single with a good morning. It really stems from just having people and doing the movement for over 20 years and seeing that the good mornings, from my experience, always work better in a 3 sets of 5 or a 5 sets of 5 range. So the good part about that is because you're dealing with more than a single, you can program that out for more than 1 week at a time. So you can do however you want to wave the exercise. You can go, a couple triples on week 1 just to kind of get used to the movement, and then hit, a heavy triple on week 2, and then try to hit that same weight on week 3 for 5. That's one way to look at it, one way to program it. If you want to use more of a descending wave type of pattern, you could go, as far as the volume, you could go 5s, 1 week, triples the next week, and then triples the next week. It's just as long as I'm not a big fan of flat wave loading over a 3-week period of time. I don't like 5, 5, 5 over 3 weeks, because the only thing that you're really left with as far as the variability is to increase the weight for 3 weeks for maximum sets of 5, and that becomes problematic because most people can't do that. So that's a good morning. There's a lot of different types of good mornings too, so that's another variable there. Recommended books for Conjugate. Nate Harvey's book is real good. I think you got to read a lot of books, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of different takes on Conjugate. I think Louis' stuff is, that's a given. Everybody should read Louis' stuff with that standpoint. If you want to go back and see where he got all his stuff from, you can go into a lot of the old Russian manuals. Most people aren't going to do that, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. We have a lot of articles on Elite FTS about Conjugate, so you get a lot of different perspectives from that standpoint. Nate Harvey's book, Conjugate U, is very good. Matt Wenning's material is very good. I'm forgetting somebody, but that's where I kind of spend the focus. I'd start on Elite FTS, it's free, and read all the stuff there. And then you'll get a certain knack, a certain feel for different authors. I got a ton of stuff out there on Conjugate. And then the author that you get the better feel for, and you like the voice that they're writing in, then go down that rabbit hole as deep as you possibly can, because it's like you can pick their brain a little bit better. I like that strategy better than trying to take a little bit from all these different authors and figure out what's going on. Hit one you like, deep dive on it. That way, because there's gonna be a lot of them you just don't like. You don't like the writing style. Maybe you don't like me because I say fuck too much. That's fine. You find somebody else and go there, and then you can look and see how they compare to other people. And when you look to see how they compare to other people, you're going to see differences and variances. You're always going to see that. And that's going to happen with anybody that's been in this field for any period of time. They're going to disagree on 5, 10%, sometimes maybe even 20%. Forget about that, because as you do this over a period of a decade longer and stuff like that, you're going to disagree with other people's stuff 20% of the time as well, because that's kind of where experience comes in. The experience is kind of the red flag that says, man, I don't know, this doesn't sound right. Look and see what the 80% is or the 90% is that everybody agrees on, and completely devour and understand that. Because once you have that base knowledge, then you're going to be able to have a better established base knowledge to know what you actually disagree with. Most people that I see disagree with other people's training methods, philosophies, whatever you want to call it, and their cognitive dissonance is so fucked up because they don't know anything. They don't even know what they disagree with. So if you try to have a conversation with them in regards to what they disagree with, it's kind of a worthless conversation because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Now, if you have that base where you see what that 80% is everybody agrees on, then you can have that conversation with the person that you disagree with certain things about. And then when you have that conversation, you understand where they're coming from. And it makes sense with the population and the people they train. That makes sense. You know, I guess I'd be looking at these things here. What's on the pizza? Fucking grease. This is gross. It's like a grease pizza with with cheese and pepperoni and pineapple. I have 40 to 50 foot for sled dragging, worth getting one. Yeah. I mean, it's once again, go back to what I said earlier. If you missed that, it's steps, you know. I can't say it. Weight releasers. Yes, I've used them, and I've used them a lot, and I like them, but I probably should have ate before I did this, right? Fuck it. Let me tell you what I don't like about weight releasers first. And I'll use a bench press as an example. On the bench press, we have the strength curve. Everybody understands what that is. You're stronger at the top, weaker at the bottom. Now, if you load 100 extra pounds on the weight releaser, yes, you're going to be stronger on the eccentric, the lowering part of the lift, when you come down. And say you're loading, let's just say the 100 pounds is an extra 20% that you have that's at the top. Well, usually that 20% extra that you're loading is the 20% based upon that max strength. So it might be 20% more at your top strength, but it's way more at the bottom because the strength curve is less during that bottom portion. So it may be inherently very safe from here to here, you know, to overload that with, you know, 10, 15% more than what your maximum bench is. But it isn't when you get down lower in the strength curve. And so the weight releasers, they accommodate the eccentric to the concentric, but they don't accommodate the strength curve. You know, so say chains, for instance, when you lower chains, they pop off. They're, you know, they deload onto the ground as you come down. Weight releasers and, something I've been working on for a decade, and it still hasn't come to light. So there's a zillion prototypes. So I guess I don't really give a shit by putting it out there, because if it's taken me 10 years and probably 50 different failures, it's not going to be so easy for anybody else to do it. If the weight releasers would deload like a chain, so say it was a chain releaser, where it could load here at the top, then as it come down, it will pop off, then it would be far more beneficial from that standpoint. The other negative with the weight releaser is you can only use them for 1 rep because they pop off. So there's 2 flaws with those. So now let's talk about the things that I like about the weight releasers. If you're not using them for that max effort effect, and you just want to use them to overload a submaximal weight, say you want to take a 60% load and make it a 75% load, and you want that first rep to be more, that's fine, that's fine. I personally have never seen any type of carryover outside of variance and just fun to do to make it worth doing. So I'll just leave it with that. I have a low ceiling basement with an adjustable bench. Should I do seated overhead press? Okay, the question is, should you do, the way I'm taking this is, because you can't do standing overhead presses, or seated overhead presses just as good. Where I'm gonna backtrack that and say, why are you doing the overhead presses? And if they're in there for a reason that is a good reason, then yes, do the seated ones, because you don't want to eliminate an exercise from your program just because you can't do it standing. You can always, like you said, you can always do it seated on the bench. You can always do it, if you really want to make it hard, do it seated on the floor with your feet out in front of you. I've seen people do them kneeling on the floor as well. So there's other variations outside of just sitting on the bench, where if you're doing it kneeling, you're gonna bring back more of that torso stability that you lose when you go to the bench. When you do it seated flat on the floor with your feet in front of you, you really bring back the torso stability. So there's other options there you might not be thinking of. Thoughts on glute bridges for a sub movement? Just glute bridges in general, because I do get asked about this quite a bit. I don't like them, okay? It's just, and it's not because I don't think they're effective. I come from being a personal trainer and, a strength coach for many years before, starting Elite FTS. And I always had this, I didn't want to ever have anybody do any exercise that I felt made them look stupid or put them in some type of compromised position. So I have a hard time, watching people do a glute bridge if they're in a gym and there's a bunch of people standing around, and I can find other ways to accomplish the same thing. So that's the only reason why I don't like them, right? So yes, they have their purpose. Yes, I have people do them. And if I have people do them, that's the first thing I ask them is, are you comfortable doing these? Because a lot of people just, they won't tell you if they're not. So I'd rather just address that from the very beginning. I get it, right? It's stupid, but guys, you got to go back, and if you're working with somebody, in a gym, and this is your profession, it's what this is how you pay your bills, and you're going to bring in somebody that, is a top executive for a bank, and you have them in an executive training center, are you going to put them on the floor with a bar on their hips with their legs spread facing a treadmill? Even if you move them around, are you still going to do that? I'm not going to do that. So that's my reason for that. Is it a good exercise to build your glutes? Yes, that's been proven. That's not even really debatable, in my opinion. The things that are debatable are the other reasons are there other exercises to be able to do. So is a submaximal exercise? Yes. I don't know how I really feel about them is a maximal exercise, going super heavy with low reps, and that's only because I don't have that experience of having people do that to be able to say, I know definitively this does carry over. And if I don't know that definitively from experience, I'm never gonna say it. Are you gonna watch the 520, I guess Thor's pulled tomorrow? I forgot all about it, to be honest with you. Yeah, if it happens to be on while I'm on my phone, and it seems like that's all I'm doing anymore is on my phone, yeah, I'll watch it. I wish him the best. I don't understand what the controversy is all about, but that's just my opinion. Hell, I didn't even know until maybe when this all started, I didn't even know that strongman had a deadlift world record. I thought world records were only in powerlifting. So that's why I don't have an opinion on the whole thing, because I'm not educated enough to even know what the hell the history is with it. I thought they always deadlifted with, axles and cars and all these different implements. I didn't know. So I wish him the best, man. It's a fucking hell of a lift, no matter how it's done, where it's done. Respect all the way. Thoughts on the Tsunami bar? Better for light reps or heavy singles? I like the reps with it. I like the Tsunami bar. The Tsunami bar a lot of times gets compared to the bamboo bar because of the oscillation. And to me, they're very different. And I have different experience with it because my shoulder is completely trash. So if something is going to hurt my shoulder, it's going to hurt my shoulder. And for instance, I can't do a full range of motion press with a bamboo bar. People swear by it, says it's great for their shoulder. It destroys me, and not in a good way. It destroys me as far as, the pain and then the aftermath pain that comes from it. But if I have, the banded kettlebells on there and I take it out and I hold it for 3, 4, 5 minutes, usually I'll go a song on the radio, whatever it is. If I hold it, that is way better than if I held a barbell or if I even held the Tsunami bar. Way better. So from that standpoint, that stability, oscillation standpoint, that's the best thing I've ever used for that squat array and the other movements. Tsunami bar is better for the full range movements, from my opinion again. So that's kind of how I have other people do it as well. But I don't have anybody do either one of those for really heavy work. So they're different. And I understand they're both expensive too. So I'm not going to sit here and tell people you have to do both to know the difference of both. If I had to tell people which one to get over the other, I probably would go with the Tsunami bar because it's going to be able to be used for more exercises, and that's the only reason why. Okay. Sleeve squatter transitioning to a wrap squatter. How does the programming change? I don't think the programming has to change a lot between the two. I think you got to watch really close what your movement mechanics do, because a lot of times you'll see with sleeved squatters, the toe moves a little bit further forward on the foot than what you're going to see with wraps. Okay, so if somebody's going back and forth, wraps, sleeves, you want to make sure when they're going back and forth that their technical proficiency is still the same. In other words, you don't want them to start putting the wraps on and then the knee starts sitting back further on the foot, because that becomes a different, slightly different movement pattern than what they were doing before. And then when they go back to the sleeves, shit's going to be a little off. So for that reason, if it's a competitor, I don't like them to see them go, compete in sleeves, one meet, wraps next meet, sleeves next meet. It's, do a couple meets in one and then do a couple meets in the other. That way, if your technique has to shift to be able to get more out of the wraps, then you're able to get that bigger carryover out of the wraps. Programming wise, I don't think it really has to matter. I take that back. If you're gonna wear the wraps jack tight to where they're hurt like hell, then the programming does matter, because you're gonna need more heavier weeks, phased throughout the program, depending upon how you train, just to be able to get used to the wraps with the heavier weight. When going back to normal, are you gonna have people down for a learn to train? Probably not. The learn to train seminars that we were doing basically died 2 years ago. And it's funny when it comes to education and all this stuff, and I'm finding this out more now than ever before. People don't really understand the cost that goes into a lot of these things. So, we put on a learn to train. We used to donate the profits to charity, because they did well. We had the attendance to be able to make them do well, and we could charge, I believe back then we were charging $450 for 2 days, and we were able to donate a significant, like $5,000 to Make-A-Wish every time we did that. So all the profits were donated, so we never kept any of the profits from those. The problem was, over a period of time, people started doing clinics, and they would go to other people's gyms to teach a squat, bench, and deadlift. And there might be one coach with 40, 50 people in the gym, and they're charging $75 a head. So inherently what happened is the learn to train got extremely devalued to where nobody wanted to pay anything over $150 at the very most. Well, with that, we couldn't break even anymore. So we couldn't do them anymore. And because you can't get the coaches out, you can't get the people out to help you if they're not being compensated. And that's where it happened. And for us, the way the learn to trains worked is I will never put somebody in a squat station if they don't have 3 coaches at a minimum and no more than 12 people, because I want to make sure that each person that is being taught movement is going to have that movement. It's going to be able to do it at least 50 to 100 reps of that movement and have 3 sets of eyes on every single repetition they do. So that's why it costs more. Where if you go and it's one person, because I've done them before where there's one person in a gym, I'm lucky if there's 4 people there. I did one with Ed Cohn in Omaha. At best, every person there probably had in the squat maybe 4 reps that were actually coached, at best. You know, because there's 2 of us and there's 40 people or whatever it was. So you're running around like you're chicken with your head cut off to be able to show and be able to teach and instruct, but you can't. But, you know, when it's broken down into the smaller stations, then it's easier to coach, because that's kind of how coaches operate, universities and high schools and so forth. So no, I don't think those are going to come back, because nobody's going to pay the cost. And, you know, after everybody's getting hit and the whole country's on unemployment, I don't know how they're going to be able to pay anyhow. So we will be doing other things though. So there are other things that are in the works. I do the train your ass off thing. I just have to figure out how to scale that in some way, because I honestly, I cannot, 4 people at one time is max. And I can't add any more. I would really like to take it down to 3. And it's a long day. All you guys see on the YouTube videos are just clips. Those days sometimes are 10 hours, because there is the training component. Then there's another, sometimes, hell, a couple times it's been 6 or 7 hours of just sitting around discussing training and talking about how to integrate, you know, things into the program and stuff like that. So there's a lot to those things that take a lot of time. I'm not gonna sit here and try to pretend like it wears me out more than it wears them out, because I fucking destroy them. But it does. I mean, it kicks my ass. So it's hard for me to do those frequently. Before the Arnold, I tried to do 2 in a row, Friday and Saturday. I made it, but fuck, I was fucked up for 3 days after that. Your thoughts on shoulder replacement for your condition? I'm going to answer this really quick, because when I did this Instagram thing, I still got a video on my phone where I discussed it in detail. I'm going to throw that on my Instagram live soon, you know, day or 2 maybe. Long story short, my shoulder, I've had 2 procedures on it. You know, it needs replaced. I'm not going to do the replacement because the success rate that I've seen with people with shoulder replacements are horrible. So what's the point of doing something if it's not going to be better, or it's potentially going to be worse? And B, the only thing that I really have, and it's not gotten any worse since 2005, is the restricted range of motion. I can't grab a squat bar. You know, there's my external range of motion. There's my internal. So, but I can do all the things that I need to do. You know, I can squat with the yoke bar. So there you go. And the pain it's tolerable. It's not bad. My hips, on the other hand, that was a deal where, you know, I had to get those done. So the only reason I would ever get this done is if the pain got so bad it was 24/7, like my hips were. And then I'm not going to get it done until I start to see people, you know, one after another, have the thing done and then come back and be stronger than when they had it done. And until I see that, I'm not going to do it. I saw that with hips, one after the other after other. So to me, it was, yes, there's a risk of always getting it done, but it was a much easier decision to make, coupled with the extreme pain I was in the whole time. I would not use a slingshot for speed bench work. I'd use it after, but I wouldn't use it for the actual dynamic work unless your shoulders are really fucked up, pecs really fucked up, and that's the only way you can get it done, assuming you've made the decision to get it done. I'm not a doctor. I got to put that out there. So I'm not telling you to do that. I know other people have done it. Having a hypertrophy day and a heavy day on the bench, too much. No, you know, questions like that kind of confuse me a little bit, because if you train your bench heavy, that's one exercise you're training heavy. And if you do another 3 exercises, Are you not training those for hypertrophy? You know, you can do two things at one time, right? I mean, hell, aren't all our governors telling us that now, right? But in our case, we can. You know, if they I'll just leave that what it is. But so you should always be working on hypertrophy, I guess is what I'm saying here. So it should always be inherently built into any program that you're doing, any structure of the program that you're doing, because even if you're in a weight class where you no longer want to add more muscle mass because you don't want to go up a weight class, or if there's any other reason where you don't want to add more muscle mass, you still have to maintain what you have. So if you drop all hypertrophy training, you're going to start to lose a little muscle mass. The difference between our belt squat and the West Side ATP, it's not just our belt squat. And the West Side ATP is it's a machine in its own right. There's and I don't sell it, guys. So there's no comparison between that and a belt squat or that and a pick shark. Or there's leverage belt squats, there's cable belt squats, and then there's ATP. The cable belt squats, basically you're able to go up and down and you're kind of move out of there. But the way the pulley is, it's only going to pull this way, right? The lever it's a different story. You know, I don't think the lever is as good as a cable, but it has other purposes. I have all three and we use all three, you know, so I use the lever one for repetition work, for beginners, you know, for people that I just want to destroy their legs. I use the lever one. I use the cable one for the people that have more, their technique is better, their movement patterns are more established. You know, we can go a little bit heavier and we don't have to worry about, you know, because if they bend over, it's harder to cheat on that. The ATP is a different machine because you can step out to the sides. The cable just doesn't go this one way, it goes each way. But at the same time, it's not as wide, so you can't get, you know, a wide stance on there. And you really can't go as hard or as heavy as what you can on the other ones. So in that regard, they're all kind of a little different. So I would have to know what the training needs of the coach or the athlete is to be able to recommend which one they should go with. Because a lot of times people will buy one and then it just sits because it's not how they would use something in their program. So that's why with that. Could you do JM Blakely sit 6 to 6 instead of dynamic work? You could, but I wouldn't call it dynamic work. That's what JM did. It's just sub-maximal loading. Are we planning on making more apparel on the US store available to the UK? We can. I mean, we can that's an easy one. We can pretty much make anything in the UK or in the UK store that we can in the US store. So it's just let them know, you know, either through the UK Instagram or the email on the UK site. What is the best way to explain a cue to somebody to squeeze their lats instead of their chest for a bench press? Okay, I'm going to use this just to kind of segue into cueing. Why are you telling them why do you feel you need to tell them to cue their lats instead of their chest for the bench? That would be the first question. Okay, because if the reason for that is, say, lack of stability at the top, they take it out, they're just not stable, then yes, it could be the lats, right? It could be the rear delts too. It could be a few different things, but the fact of the matter is the bar's still moving at the top and it's not stable. So whatever cue is used has to fix what you see as wrong. Okay, so for a lot of people, it could be telling them, look, you need to pin your lats down, you need to flex your lats. But if they don't know how to flex their lats, then you're just beating a dead horse. If they don't know, how to pull the bar apart, you're just beating a dead horse. If you can just simply tell them, don't let the bar move, be more stable, and it fixes it, then you shorten that down to just stable, 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 stable. Find whatever cue works to fix the problem. And if that cue that you give doesn't work to fix the problem, give another one. It doesn't matter if the cue is 100% ass backwards if it fixes the problem. I've told people to do some of the dumbest shit that some of it would be even on, I'm sure, some of the older YouTube videos. And people, trust me, I get it. People jump my ass. I can't believe you told him to do that. Fuck that. I don't care what I told him. What did they do? Because if they did it right after I told them, I don't care. What I care about is that they do it right. And if the cues that I'm using leading up to that don't work, I can come up with 50 different things. Look at the moon, whatever the hell you got to do, it doesn't matter. So people are too fucking caught up in this cue thing, thinking that there's a specific cue that's going to fix everything. And there's not. You got to find the problem and then help that person fix the problem. That's called coaching. So coaching is not regurgitating other people's cues without even knowing what the fuck they're giving them for. So I guess that was a little rant, but how tall was Chuck V? 10 foot, a little under my height. All right, I'm going through here and either I can't see things very well. What are your thoughts on rubber bench shirt? Dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I don't know. That's my ignorance. So, do you know of any isolation exercises that isolate the hamstrings? Can be done with a rack, barbell, bands that won't put more volume on lower back. Yeah. Seated leg curls, let's go with that. Without knowing, the history and what's going on here. I don't know if I would be comfortable telling you to lie flat and do, regular leg curls because I don't know what you're doing with your lower back or how to even tell you to not do it. So if I have you sit, on a bench, a milk crate, doesn't matter, whatever it is, and put the band around your heels, attach the other band to the rack, and just do seated leg curls, then you're good. And you could do 2 legs at a time, single leg at a time, alternating legs. There's different tempos. There's a lot of things that you can do with that, so it's not always the same thing. I'll go a couple more questions here before I shut it down. Do I think most athletes would benefit from leaving a large commercial gym in favor of a small warehouse gym? Yes, definitely. And you said here too, with more experienced lifters. There's a few reasons for this. The first is your perception of strength will change when you get around stronger people. So, example, you go into a gym and everybody there benches 400 pounds, you bench 200 pounds. All of a sudden 300 pounds 315 is not that big of a deal. It's just some shit you have to do before you get as strong as the other people that are in there. Now, if you're in a big box gym, 315 might be the strongest fucking person that's ever been in there. So that's the top, so then all of a sudden 250, all these other, not 275, all these other numbers, they look heavier, but the lifter feels more accomplished than what they should. maybe that's not the right way to say it, but they feel more accomplished than what they really should because they can be so much better. So by having that strength perception change, by being around people that are much stronger is going to make a huge difference on not just the main movements, but all the accessory movements as well. The other thing is when you're in a more serious environment, you start to pick up on all the things that you can't see on Instagram or online or in YouTube videos. What do experienced lifters do between sets, for instance? What do they do before they do their set? So a lot of people may be completely under this, false perception that before every set, they're getting super fucking jacked up and attacking bars because that's what they see. But then they don't realize if they actually train with these people, you might see that once or twice a week out of 100 sets. So, but they also are going to be able to see that the more serious the lifters are, there's either going to be, focus during the entire time that they're in the gym, or they're going to be able to see they can switch from conversation mode to focus mode on a dime. But they'll also find that there's going to be very few sets that are ever done that aren't focused. They're also going to see that warm-up sets are treated just as deliberately as the heavy sets. So I can go on, I can probably list 100 things. Maybe it should be an article I do sometime. But of all these, things that lifters will pick up just being in gyms that are more serious. So yes, there's going to be an intimidation factor of anybody that goes into a gym, but everybody that's in there had that same intimidation factor. So you get over it. And then once you find out, especially now, it's not like it used to be 25 years ago. Now everybody's super inviting. 30 years ago, you kind of had to earn your way, into different groups and so forth. And it's not like that. So I don't even know why anybody would even begin to be intimidated at this point anymore. So there's other reasons too, but those would be the biggest ones. I'll take one more here. It's like a slingshot, but I won't count this as a question. It's like a slingshot put into the bench shirt. I know what you're talking about now. I'm not familiar enough with them to really have an opinion. I don't not like them. I mean, if they work and they're easier to use than a bench shirt, then I'm all for them, because bench shirts are a pain in the ass. So is the carryover going to be the same? Actually, I think, I do know of one lifter that got a bigger carryover out of that than they did a bench shirt. So best lat pull down grip for the best overall development. The one you're not doing, I don't think it matters. I think you need to have neutral grips. I like close grip, I like wide grip. So you have to have variations of both, and if you look at, I got a zillion cable attachments in here. So if you look at wide grip work that you can do on a lat machine, I bet I got, countless variations, because you can do, underhand, overhand, you can do for different types of wide grip. And to me, it's all wide grip. So it doesn't matter. Just pick what you want, pick what you like. Most people that I know just use whatever's on the bar, right? Whatever's on the machine, it's there, I'm going to use that. So they don't really bother with changing things. But I do think that, if you want to be a little more complete and you want to not develop, I have to pick my words cautiously, not develop, not overuse patterns, weak points, whatever you want to say. It's just, you need to use some close grip work, some wide grip work. I like neutral grip, close, wider grip, regular grip from that standpoint. So there is no, in my opinion, there's no best attachment. I'll tell you what though, things like pull downs, and man, they get boring really, really fast. So that's probably why I got all the attachments that I do, because you get a new attachment, then all of a sudden it's not boring for another month. And then it gets boring again, you gotta go to a different attachment. All right, guys, I'm gonna shut this down. I got half a pizza still here to eat, and I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. I have to figure out how to turn this off. So pardon my ignorance as I just start pressing shit.